John don't want to film. He wants to go ride.
Yeah. Got it.
That's the intro now. Hey! So you want to buy a project, you've got the itch. Whether it be by Facebook Marketplace, word of mouth, or just seeing it on the side of the road, everybody's going to run into something they want at some point. Buying a project can come with its own set of challenges, and those challenges can make or break you. Now, the type of projects that we're talking about in this video is going to be mainly geared towards go-karts, mini bikes, pit bikes, dirt bikes, and four-wheelers. But some of these things can be applied to cars, trucks, and even motorcycles as well. Stick around and you might learn you something. That being said, let's get after it. This video is not meant to be a step-by-step guide on buying a project. This is just a step in the general direction to make sure that you don't get in over your head. Before you even go look at a project, you need to think about a couple of things. One, what's your budget? How much money are you willing to dump into this? Because trust me, it gets expensive fast. One thing that you really need to look into if you're looking at a specific project, such as a four-wheeler, let's say Kawasaki Bayou 220. I'm going to be using a Bayou lot because I have a lot of stuff for it laying around. You want to look at what kind of availability you have on parts. Stuff like Bayous, they made forever, so parts are plentiful. But if you go and look at, say, a Suzuki JR80, they didn't make them very long, and they didn't make a lot of them. If you try and find parts that are hard to find usually means expensive. Do you have somewhere to work on it and the stuff to work on it with? Now, whether that be at your house or at a friend's house, do you have the necessary space to work on this? Trust me, I've done it working in the yard, just laying on the ground in the dirt, working on stuff. It can be done, but it sucks. Well, now that you have a workspace and you have a budget in mind, you can possibly go pick up your project. But there's a couple things that you want to look at to make sure that you don't get burned. Now, usually you can get a general idea of what shape the project is in just by looking at the photos on Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes they don't have very detailed photos, but you can kind of scroll through them and see things like if the tires hold air, if the plastics are broken, if they're even on it, stuff like that. You can look at those photos and get a pretty good idea of whether or not you're going to be able to handle this project. Because if it looks like a turd, it's probably a turd. When you go to look at a dirt bike and you find one on Facebook Marketplace or whatever, what's one of the first things you do before you even contact the person?
I look at other bikes that are similar or the same model of that bike and see how much they're worth, see how much they're going for.
Why?
We got to see what the market value is. Sometimes market's way up, sometimes it's way down. You just got to check it out and see, because you might be overpaying for what you're looking at.
That's a good point. It's a real good point. Hey, John, what's the 4 things a motor needs?
Fuel, fire, and air. And compression.
How many times have you went to look at something and the guy says it won't start?
Or it ran when it was parked.
I love that.
That's everybody's famous line.
On a Facebook ad is ran when parked.
Yeah.
But why did you park it?
The reason it was parked because it quit running. They couldn't figure out what's wrong with it.
And what's the first thing you check?
Well, see if it's got spark. That's the first thing I check.
First thing that we're going to check is whether or not it's got spark, and really all you need is a screwdriver. Now, you can take your spark plug boot off. John's going to run a screwdriver up in the boot, and then we'll just put it up against another piece of metal. I'm going to go on the other side and pull start it and see if it's got spark. Ready?
Ow! It got my finger. It didn't do the spark. It didn't spark where I wanted it to, but yes, sir. It's got spark.
We used this screwdriver to test it, and John was holding the end of it, and I forgot. It's got a metal end on it.
Yeah. I was holding it just like this. My pinky was just barely off of it, so the arc jumped from here to my pinky. I saw it do it the second time.
All right, I'm not the only one here that's throwing tools now. Do we have spark?
Oh yeah, big old blue spark.
Big old blue spark.
Oh yeah.
All right.
The spark landed where it was supposed to that time.
There you go. All right. So another test that you can check, especially if it doesn't run, is you want to make sure it's got compression. Easiest way to do that, there's mud falling all off of this four-wheel. Spark plug out and put your finger over this, and if it has a pull start, cool. This works a lot easier if it's got a pull start and the battery's not dead. But you can hold this like here. You hear that? Was it blowing my finger off? That's how you know you got good compression.
Yeah, you'll feel your what it's describing is you'll feel your thumb get pulled into the threads a little bit and then get blown back off.
Yep.
And if it's good both directions, that means you got good. Your intake and exhaust valve are generally good.
Yep.
I guess would be the best way to say it.
And your piston rings.
Yep.
A lot of times, especially if they've been sitting for a while, fuel is going to be kind of not an option. Most of the time, if they've been sitting, the gas has gone bad and it's basically turned into a gel. You can use something like starting fluid, spray it in there, and if you can get it to turn over, see if it'll fire. If it'll fire, you're in the clear. Something you want to look up right off the bat is possibly a carburetor. Personally, I don't much care for rebuilding carburetors because you can get them so cheap on places like Amazon. I just usually replace them. It's a lot easier. There's a lot less time invested in it. You can buy a $15 rebuild kit and spend 2-3 hours rebuilding the carburetor, or buy a $25 carburetor and spend 10 minutes replacing it. So you're looking at the project and you've established that it's got spark and it's got compression. If you hit it with some ether and find out that it'll start, then you know it's probably just a fuel problem and you can replace a carburetor. So that's pretty simple too. There's plenty of videos on how to do this specific to your model, so we're not going to get into all that. Pretty much you have a project right there. Then it's all about how much money you're willing to spend on it. Now, if you find other problems, you know, maybe there's something bent or broken on it, with dirt bikes and four-wheelers especially, plastics. Plastics can get expensive quickly. I think you just put or bought a set of plastics for the back of your Bayou, right? Those rear plastics were pretty expensive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, they were nearly $300 for those rear plastics, and it was the only ones that were not broken in decent shape, because there is nobody that makes. If anybody knows where you can buy them, let me know. But nobody makes reproduction plastics,
especially stuff like Japanese big four bikes, four-wheelers, stuff like that. Usually their plastics are a lot more expensive. Now, the Chinese stuff, you can get plastic. I've got plastic sitting in a box over there for a pit bike, and they're not expensive. I think I spent $50 on that full set of plastics. You can get them even with a gas tank and a seat if you want to. If everything checks out and you've got spark, you've got fuel, you've got compression and everything, if you can get it to start and you're willing to spend the money, go home with it. Everything else can be solved with a YouTube search. But again, I cannot emphasize this enough. Do your research before you buy. Definitely do your research before you buy. How many times have we bought projects and we're like, oh, it's a simple fix. And then you get home and you can't find the parts for it.
Yeah, it happens.
A lot. I got a yard full of stuff, and so does he. And if you buy a project and you get in over your head or you run into a snag and you don't know what to do, there's two things that you can do. One is YouTube. Look it up. Somebody else has had that same exact problem and knows how to fix it. And two, forums are a big help. If the vehicle is made, there's a group for it somewhere on places like Facebook, Reddit.
There'll be 1,000 people that can give you an answer. It might not be the correct answer, but they'll give you an answer.
They can tell you 1,000 ways not to do it.
There you go.
Okay. Perfect. I hope this was a little bit helpful. We didn't really have anything to work on this week, so we figured we'd kind of put this out there. This is a video that we've been meaning to do for a while. If we missed anything, please let us know. But I think this is a step in the right direction as to help you buying a project. But if you haven't already, like and subscribe. And until next time, y'all get up, get out there, and get after it.